People think the hardest part of quitting a job is writing the resignation letter. They're wrong. The hardest part is convincing yourself that walking away doesn't make you a coward. My name is Sophia Bennett, and for 4 years I worked as the executive coordinator for the most powerful businessman in Chicago. On paper, Adrian Knight was exactly what every magazine claimed he was, a billionaire entrepreneur who built Knight Global Industries into one of the largest logistics and infrastructure companies in America. To the public, he was brilliant. To investors, he was untouchable. To politicians, he was indispensable. To everyone who worked for him, he was terrifying, not because he screamed, not because he threatened people, because he never had to. One quiet sentence from Adrian Knight carried more weight than another man's rage. I knew that better than anyone. For 4 years, I lived by his calendar. I knew which meetings mattered and which ones were distractions. I knew when he skipped breakfast because he'd been working all night. I knew which clients lied with smiles and which competitors smiled before stabbing someone in the back. I even knew the exact way he liked his coffee. Black, no sugar, no cream, always hot enough to burn. I knew everything, except the man himself. Long before Knight Global became my world, life had been painfully ordinary. I grew up on the south side of Chicago with my mother, Claire Bennett. It was always just the two of us. My father disappeared before I learned to ride a bicycle. No goodbye, no explanation, just unpaid bills and a broken apartment lease. Mom worked 3 jobs for years. She cleaned offices before sunrise, worked a grocery register during the day, delivered meals at night. I used to stay awake pretending to sleep until I heard her unlock the apartment door. Then I'd close my eyes before she noticed I was waiting. She never complained, not once. Instead, she'd kiss my forehead and whisper the same words every night. "You're going to have a better life than I did." Those words became my religion. I studied harder than everyone else, graduated near the top of my class, earned scholarships, skipped parties, skipped vacations, skipped everything that didn't move me one step closer to success. Success wasn't about money, it was survival. Then life reminded me that hard work doesn't protect anyone. 3 years before I met Adrian Knight, my mother collapsed while stocking shelves during a double shift. Stage 4 kidney disease. The diagnosis changed everything. Insurance covered enough to keep her alive, not enough to make her healthy. Dialysis became part of our weekly routine. Hospitals became our second home. Bills arrived faster than paychecks. Every month felt like choosing which emergency could wait. That's why I accepted the position at Knight Global. The salary wasn't just good, it was life-changing. For the first time, I could pay rent without calculating how many groceries we'd have to sacrifice. For the first time, Mom smiled without pretending. She even joked that I had become one of those fancy corporate women. If only she knew. Knight Global's headquarters occupied 50 floors of polished steel and reflective glass overlooking downtown Chicago. Everything inside looked perfect. Marble floors, original artwork, expensive suits, designer watches, perfect smiles. Perfection is usually expensive. Secrets are even more expensive. I noticed them during my first month. Meetings that disappeared from the calendar. Visitors who never signed in. Invoices that skipped approval channels. Security personnel who weren't actually security. Nobody explained anything. Nobody asked questions. Neither did I. When your mother's medical bills depend on your paycheck, curiosity becomes a luxury. The executive floor was practically silent every day. Employees whispered. Phones vibrated instead of ringing. People knocked before entering empty offices. Fear had become part of the building's architecture. Except around me. Not because I was brave. Because somebody had to keep the place functioning. Adrian could intimidate executives worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But he still forgot lunch. He ignored doctor's appointments. Worked 18-hour days. Skipped sleep. Missed birthdays. Forgot anniversaries. Forgot that normal human beings occasionally needed to breathe. So I reminded him, every single time, "You've got 15 minutes before your board meeting. Your coffee is getting cold. You promised your physician you'd leave before 9 tonight." Sometimes he'd nod. Sometimes he'd ignore me. Sometimes I'd simply stand there until he looked up. "You aren't leaving, are you?" He'd ask. "No." Then stop staring. "I will after you eat." His expression never changed, but he'd pick up the sandwich anyway. That became our routine. People assumed I wasn't his type. I heard the whispers. "She's too ordinary, too curvy, too quiet." He's surrounded by models. They didn't know me. I wasn't trying to impress Adrian Knight. Every morning I dressed professionally because I respected myself. Tailored dresses, comfortable heels, minimal jewelry, hair neatly tied back, nothing flashy, nothing desperate. I'd spent too many years believing my size made me invisible. Eventually I realized confidence wasn't measured by clothing size. It was measured by whether you apologized for existing. I stopped apologizing. One rainy Thursday changed everything. It was nearly 3 in the morning when my company phone rang. Only emergencies happened at that hour. I answered immediately. "This is Sophia." A man's voice responded. "Transfer $12 million. No greeting, no explanation, just numbers. All need authorization. You already have it. I don't. You do now." Something about his voice unsettled me. Calm, cold, practiced. I can't process that request without documentation. Silence. Then, some paperwork shouldn't exist. My stomach tightened. I still need approval. Another pause. Then the line went dead. I didn't sleep again. The next morning I walked into the office feeling like something inside me had cracked. I looked around the executive floor differently. The expensive furniture, the smiling executives, the silent bodyguards, everything suddenly felt fake. I wasn't organizing meetings anymore. I was helping keep dangerous people organized. Whether I intended to or not. I spent the entire day distracted. When lunch arrived, Adrian noticed immediately. "You've made 3 scheduling errors." "I know. You never make mistakes." I didn't sleep. He looked at me for several seconds. "Why?" "I got a strange phone call." His eyes narrowed slightly. "What kind of call?" "I don't know." "Tell me." I did. Every word. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he became perfectly still. Too still, like someone trying very hard not to react. "Did you recognize the voice?" "No." "Did they call again?" "No." He nodded once. "Forget it happened." I blinked. "That's your advice?" "It's an instruction. I don't like instructions without explanations." "You don't need one." His tone ended the conversation. Or so he thought. For the rest of the afternoon, I couldn't concentrate. Forget it. How? Some stranger had demanded millions of dollars over the phone. Then Adrian acted like it was normal. Maybe it was normal for him. It wasn't normal for me. That evening I visited Mom after work. She was sitting beside her apartment window knitting another blanket she planned to donate to the children's ward. She smiled the moment she saw me. "Long day." "The longest." She studied my face. What? You've got that look." "What look?" "The one you had when you were 17 and pretending everything was fine." I laughed weakly. "I don't pretend anymore. Everyone pretends." She reached across the couch and squeezed my hand. "The trick is knowing when pretending starts costing more than telling the truth." I stared at her. She had no idea how deeply those words landed. "I've been thinking about quitting." She didn't answer immediately. Instead she asked, "Are you afraid of leaving?" "Yes." "Or afraid of what happens after you leave?" I looked down. "The second one." She smiled sadly. "Then your answer isn't about your job." Driving home that night, her words echoed in my head. "What happens after you leave?" Exactly. I wasn't afraid of unemployment. I was afraid of what surrounded Adrian Knight. The unanswered questions. The strange visitors. The midnight phone calls. The feeling that every hallway inside Knight Global held secrets nobody dared mention. I parked outside my apartment building and sat inside my car for almost 20 minutes. Rain tapped against the windshield. Chicago's skyline shimmered in the distance. For the first time in years, I admitted something to myself. Money had saved my mother. But it was slowly destroying me. That night, I opened my laptop. Typed exactly 3 sentences. Printed them. Folded the page neatly. Placed it inside a white envelope. My resignation letter. I stared at it until nearly dawn. By sunrise, my hands had stopped shaking. Tomorrow, I would finally tell Adrian Knight that I was leaving. I had no idea that my decision had already placed a target on my back. Writing the envelope felt heavier than paper should. It sat in my leather portfolio as I rode the elevator to the 50th floor of Knight Global headquarters, and with every floor the digital display counted upward, my heartbeat matched it. 42. 43, 44. By the time the doors opened, I had already imagined a dozen different outcomes. Maybe Adrian would accept my resignation without emotion. Maybe he'd try to negotiate. Maybe he'd simply tell me to clear out my desk. None of those possibilities frightened me. What frightened me was the possibility that leaving would change nothing, that I would spend the rest of my life wondering if I had made the biggest mistake of my career. The executive floor was unusually quiet. My assistant, Lauren, looked up from her desk. "Good morning, Sophia." "Morning." She tilted her head. You okay? You look pale. I didn't sleep much. Again, I forced a smile. I'll survive. She wasn't convinced, but she didn't press the issue. Everyone on this floor had learned that questions often led to uncomfortable answers. I walked toward Adrian's office. The familiar walnut door stood slightly open. Inside, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gray Chicago skyline. Rain clouds hung low over the city. Adrian stood with his back to the room, one hand tucked into his pocket, the other wrapped around a mug of black coffee. Without turning around, he spoke. You're 3 minutes early. I know. I adjusted the board meeting to 10. I saw. And Mr. Holloway confirmed lunch. I know. Only then did he turn. His sharp blue eyes landed on me. Within a second, he knew something was wrong. You've made a decision. It wasn't a question. I nodded once. I have. His expression didn't change. What is it? I reached into my portfolio, removed the white envelope, placed it on the edge of his desk. I've accepted another direction for my life. His gaze dropped to the envelope, then returned to my face. Neither of us moved. Finally, he asked quietly, is this your resignation? Yes. Silence filled the office, the kind that made even the rain outside seem loud. Adrian didn't touch the envelope. Instead, he walked around the desk until we stood only a few feet apart. What happened? I've been thinking about it for months. Number. His voice remained calm. Something changed yesterday. I looked away. The phone call helped me realize something. What? I don't belong here anymore. His jaw tightened. You belong exactly where you've always been. I don't. You do. I'm exhausted, Adrian. He folded his arms. Take a vacation. I don't need a vacation. Reduce your hours. I don't need fewer hours. What do you need? The answer escaped before I could stop it. A life that doesn't scare me. His eyes searched mine. For the first time since I'd met him, I saw something unfamiliar there. Not anger. Not frustration. Pain. You think I scare you. I think your world does. He looked toward the rain-soaked skyline. My world has never harmed you. You can't promise it never will. His shoulders stiffened. I can. You can't. The room fell silent again. Finally, he picked up the envelope, opened it, read the single page, folded it carefully, then set it back on the desk. I won't accept this. I blinked. You don't have to. I do. Number. My signature is required. For payroll paperwork, not for permission. His gaze hardened. I built this company. I know. I decide who stays. Number. I surprised even myself with how steady my voice sounded. You decide who you hire. I decide when I leave. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Then Adrian took one slow breath. If salary is the problem, it isn't. I'll double it. Number. Triple. I shook my head. I don't want more money. I'll pay for your mother's treatment. That caught me off guard. You already provide excellent insurance. I'll cover everything else. You don't owe me that. I don't care. I do. He stepped closer. So tell me what you want. I already did. You want peace. Yes. I can't give you peace. His honesty stunned me, but I can give you everything else. I felt tears threatening. I don't want everything else. I know. His voice became almost painfully quiet. That's why this is difficult. I stared at him. What does that mean? He looked like he wanted to answer. Instead he simply said, you're making a mistake. Maybe. I know you think leaving solves your problems. It solves one of them. Number. His eyes locked onto mine. It creates bigger ones. I frowned. Is that a threat? His expression changed immediately. No. Then what is it? A warning. I laughed bitterly. That isn't much better. I wish it were. I picked up my portfolio. I've already made my decision. I know. I'll finish my 2-week notice professionally. I know. I'll train whoever replaces me. There won't be a replacement. I paused. What? There won't be another executive coordinator. You can't run this office alone. I'll manage. I almost smiled. No, you won't. For the briefest moment, something close to amusement crossed his face. Then it disappeared. You've always underestimated how difficult you are to replace. I promise you, I don't make promises I can't keep. I looked at him for a long moment. For years I'd assumed I understood Adrian Knight. At that moment, I realized I didn't understand him at all. I have work to finish. He nodded once. So do I. I turned and walked toward the door. Sophia. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. I truly hope, he said quietly, that one day you understand why I asked you to stay. Without answering, I left. The news spread faster than I expected. By lunchtime nearly everyone on the executive floor knew I was leaving. People stopped by my office pretending they needed paperwork. Mostly they wanted confirmation. Is it true? Yes. Where are you going? I haven't decided. You really resigned? I did. Most looked shocked. Some looked relieved. A few looked terrified. One senior vice president quietly whispered, "I've never seen anyone voluntarily leave this floor." That sentence stayed with me. Not because of what he said. Because of how he said it. As though people didn't leave. As though they escaped. The following days felt strange. Adrian became strictly professional. No unnecessary conversations. No discussions beyond work. No negotiations. No arguments. It almost hurt more than if he'd been angry. I packed family photos into small boxes. Organized digital files. Created training manuals. Documented passwords. Prepared transition binders. Every evening I visited Mom. She insisted I looked happier. I wasn't sure she was right. I was simply lighter. Until the 10th day. That afternoon, I received a phone call. The hospital. My stomach tightened immediately. "This is Sophia, Ms. Bennett." "Yes. We're calling regarding your mother's upcoming procedure." "Is something wrong?" A pause. "There have been administrative changes." "What kind of changes?" "You'll need to speak with Patient Financial Services." "Why?" "I'm afraid I can't discuss that over the phone." The call ended. An uneasy feeling settled into my chest. The next morning was Saturday. For the first time in years, I didn't have work. I made coffee, watered my plants, opened my apartment windows, tried convincing myself everything would be okay. Around 9 o'clock, someone knocked on my door. Not aggressively, just once. Firm. I opened it. A man in a navy suit stood outside. Mid-50s. Gray hair. Professional smile. "Ms. Bennett." "Yes. I'm looking for Claire Bennett's emergency contact." "That's my mother." He handed me a thick envelope. "You'll want to read this immediately." Before I could ask another question, he walked away. No explanation. No business card. Nothing. I closed the door. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents, hospital ownership transfer papers, financial notices, a formal letter. I read the first paragraph twice before the words made sense. The nonprofit medical center where my mother had received treatment for years. Had been sold. Effective immediately. Every existing financial assistance agreement was under review. Pending surgeries, including my mother's, were suspended until new payment terms were accepted. I felt sick. No, this couldn't be happening. I grabbed my phone and called the hospital. Busy. Again. Busy. Again. Finally someone answered. "I need to speak with someone about Claire Bennett." "Please hold." After nearly 15 minutes, another voice came on the line. "I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett. My mother's surgery can't be cancelled." "It hasn't been cancelled." Relief flooded through me. Then came the next sentence. "It has been postponed indefinitely." My heart stopped. What? There is a financial review. She doesn't have time for a financial review. I understand. No, you don't. Tears filled my eyes. She needs that surgery. I'm very sorry. Who bought the hospital? Silence. Then, you'll need to discuss that directly with the new ownership. Who? I've scheduled you for a meeting. When? Today. Where? The executive office. What time? 2 o'clock. I looked at the address. Downtown Chicago. Less than 10 minutes, from Night Global. A cold feeling crawled down my spine. Something about this didn't feel like coincidence, for the first time since resigning. I found myself wondering whether walking away had truly set me free, or whether I had unknowingly stepped into a much larger game. I expected the chairman's office to be filled with lawyers. Instead, Adrian Knight stood alone beside the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the Chicago skyline. "You think I bought the hospital?" I said, refusing to sit. "I invested in the hospital's parent company 6 months ago," he replied. "Not to control you, to stop someone else from destroying evidence." I laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe that?" Without another word, he slid a worn leather notebook across the desk. It belonged to his brother, Daniel Knight. Inside were handwritten notes, names, dates, and one sentence circled in red: "Trust no one on the board." Adrian finally looked at me. Daniel didn't die in a plane accident. My stomach tightened. He was murdered. The room fell silent. Adrian explained that Daniel had discovered millions of dollars disappearing through fake infrastructure contracts tied to Knight Global. Before he could expose the fraud, his plane crashed under suspicious circumstances. The FBI suspected corruption, Adrian said, but they never found enough evidence. "So why tell me?" "Because your name appears in Daniel's notes." I froze. My name? You unknowingly processed executive schedules and payment approvals that connected everyone involved. I felt sick. I never saw anything. You weren't supposed to. Adrian leaned closer. The people who killed Daniel believe you have access to records that could expose them. Suddenly my phone rang. It was the hospital. My mother's medical file had disappeared. We rushed to the hospital. Someone had erased my mother's treatment history from the electronic system. Doctors couldn't continue her procedure without confirming critical medical records. While administrators searched for backups, Adrian quietly pulled me aside. This isn't random. He introduced me to retired FBI investigator Michael Grant, who had secretly worked with Daniel before his death. Grant showed us security footage from Night Global. One executive appeared repeatedly in Daniel's final meetings. Victor Hale, the company's respected chief financial officer. For years, Hale had built a reputation as a generous philanthropist. Behind closed doors, he controlled a network of shell companies that stole millions from government contracts and laundered money through medical suppliers. Daniel found the evidence. Then Daniel died. Grant believed Hale had someone inside the hospital helping erase records connected to witnesses, including my mother, who unknowingly received treatment funded through one of the fraudulent charities. That evening someone broke into my apartment. Nothing valuable was stolen. Only my old work laptop disappeared. I suddenly remembered something. Months earlier, I'd backed up years of executive calendars onto an encrypted drive before replacing my computer. I had forgotten it existed. If those calendars matched Daniel's notes, they could expose every secret meeting before his death. Victor Hale wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to erase history. The encrypted drive became the center of everything. For 2 sleepless days Adrian, Grant, and I compared the calendars with Daniel's notebook. Every meeting matched. Every payment lined up. Every missing shipment pointed to Victor Hale. Instead of confronting him directly, Grant arranged a meeting with federal investigators. They needed Hale to confess. Adrian announced an emergency board meeting. Every executive attended. Hidden recording devices captured the room. Hale remained calm until Adrian projected Daniel's files onto the conference screen. Then I placed my calendar records beside them. The silence was overwhelming. Hale smiled. I suppose Daniel trusted the wrong people. You murdered your best friend, Adrian answered. Hale shrugged. He became expensive. Before anyone could react, federal agents entered through every door. Grant stepped forward. It's over. Hale tried to run. He didn't make it past the elevators. Months later, Night Global emerged under new leadership. Corrupt executives were imprisoned. Government contracts were restored. The hospital received new nonprofit funding. My mother finally underwent the surgery she'd waited so long to receive. One evening Adrian found me standing outside the hospital watching the sunset. You could work anywhere now, he said. I know. Are you leaving? I smiled. I resigned because I wanted an honest life. And now I know honesty isn't about where you work. It's about who you're willing to stand beside. He didn't promise me forever. He simply reached for my hand. After everything we'd lost, that quiet moment meant more than any grand declaration ever could. For the first time in years, neither of us was running from the past. We were finally walking toward the future together.